Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to Monday's edition of the Grain Market Blast, or the Grain Blast, as I've kind of shortened it to. It is, yes, you heard me right, it's Monday, so blink and you miss it, you've missed your weekend. It's Monday the 20th of October, which is scary in itself. As usual, the wonderful, the glamorous, the gorgeous, the goddess of grain herself, Angie Setzer, will be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, I will get the legals out of the way. Boring as it is, but nothing discussed on this podcast is trading or investment advice, etc., etc. Nothing's endorsement. We aren't paid by anyone, unfortunately. If anyone wants to sponsor us, please shout out now. No, now. Do your own due diligence, etc., etc. But Angie, my love, how are you?
I'm super. It's
Thanks for
Monday.
asking.
Yeah, that was super. Thanks for asking. That's what I said the other day. Someone posted when on the Argentina beef imports or something like that. They were basically like, "All right, it's only a matter of time before South Park does."
Oh, do you know what? That's a great shout, actually.
That's
I can see it happening because they've got the farm and the cows there already.
right. That's it. So I'm really hopeful that they recognize that I have been a fan literally from the start. I still actively quote South Park the movie, bigger, longer, uncut. So please treat me nicely if you do, like if we do get there to the South Park side of things, because I have a feeling my big mouth is going to end up in some way, shape, or form on the show if that were the case.
Oh my God, that would break the
Like
internet. It would
that's
break
why
me.
like I'm close enough to Canada though that I hope they make me Canadian. Like that would be great. So, but anyway, welcome. It's Monday. Biggest thing obviously that we're paying attention to is what the heck's happening with China. President Trump has went from quadrupling soybean exports to, hey, just buy what you bought the last time.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I'm like, okay, well maybe he started following me on Twitter because that's been my argument for a long time is like, hey, we really don't want him to quadruple soybean purchases. It's actually the worst thing that we could do for our little infant biofuel industry and some of these other things. We're finally getting to where we're reinforcing blend rates and crush margins are decent. The last thing we really want to do is cannibalize our ourselves like we're seeing Brazil and Argentina do to a certain extent and sacrifice the crush industry. So I hope I do and maybe he's getting someone in his ear now that's kind of like, okay, Mr. President, maybe we should just ask for like status quo on some
Yeah.
things. Now, if you want to argue that, we need to adjust how rare earths are traded or how chips are traded or whatever, like that's cool. But I am one of these people right now that's basically like, hey, let's not with the whole, let's just quadruple and quintuple and whatever
Mhm.
our purchases. Like, let's not and say we did. So that's one positive sign in that respect, especially because he said, well, I'll pull back some tariffs if that's what it takes to get things going. Which
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of one of those deals where you ever work for a boss that like the idea had to be theirs and
Oh, absolutely. Well, me. You're talking about me. That's what Team PIQ have to deal with.
just I always used to I had one and I still love him very much to this day, my former boss, where you just had to plant the seed and be like, and then he'd tell you how stupid of an idea it was many of the times, you know what I mean? And then like
Yeah.
2 or 3 months later, it'd come out of the blue. Then I feel like we're at that point with the Trump administration where, maybe he's finally kind of turned and said, okay, ag people, what is it that I really need to be doing? But we, obviously we'll see like there's some back and forth or some confusion. You did see China remove the gentleman that Lee Chen Gang or whatever
Yes.
that Percent specifically was like, he's unhinged. We don't like him, yada, yada, yada. Well, they moved him out of the role. Like he basically formalized the new role of the top trade negotiator. Like he's not like there was some confusion on that. He's not going to be the permanent representative to the World Trade Organization anymore. And so a lot of people are like, oh, he's gone. He's out. He's whatever. No, that just means he can focus on making the sense life from miserable hell, I guess. I don't know. He's still focusing on trade from what I am understanding. It's just not the WTO aspect of it. So China's going to have a new World Trade Organization representative. She's actually female and she started, basically on the 29th of September or whatever. And so I think there was some confusion, but it was interesting to see him kind of show up in the news simply because he said that, he called him unhinged. He said that maybe he was the one that was going rogue, all of these things, called him very disrespectful. And so, really when it comes down to it, like he's still there, but will he be kind of sat down? we'll see. But Vicent and everyone, it's kind of a lot of moving pieces right now. A lot of he said, she said.
Hey, stop it.
That's where we're at. So the one thing I do find interesting that I think is important to point out, because a lot of folks are really focused on, okay, China's covered all of their October needs, which they have. It's October 20th. And they've covered most of their November needs, which they have. They've basically covered about 80% of what they need to purchase in November, but they are wide open for December and January. And another interesting thing is that they're behind last year's purchases of new crop beans out of Brazil by about 5 million metric ton, or about
Right.
190 million bushels. And so it'll be interesting to see, especially because, yeah, Brazil's gotten off to a good start planting wise. Things look good, but they are starting to turn to drier. They don't have much in the way of heat, but when I say much in the way of heat for Brazil, normal temperatures this time of year, 85, 90, low 90s basically. So if they do get heat into the forecast, it'll be 100 degrees, you're going to bake the younger beans. So it's just something to watch. If they do see a continuation of below normal precipitation, this could put China in an interesting position. But from an overall standpoint, there's talk that they're going to release some supplies out of reserves and all of these other things. I mean, we're just basically awash in China headlines at this point. And one of the things that I've been saying to a lot of my customers though over the last little bit, and I think this is what's becoming clear, we basically priced in, at least at this point, the idea of a very, very, very small, if not non-existent China bean program. The problem that we have right now is if they do surprise us and show up, what happens there? But then in addition, there's a lot of talk of a much smaller bean crop than what was anticipated. When you look at what's going on with cash, when you look at what's going on with, the strength in basis, some of the strength that we'd seen in spreads, the fact that ADM, Decatur, Illinois, excuse me, is offering free delayed price. Like very rarely do you see storage not have a cost immediately, after harvest. Like up here, it costs you 52 cents a bushel to store soybeans minimum. So to see them be like 0 cents to store them, we take ownership of the bean. You have all of the opportunity to price later on. There's just a lot of things out there that are showing some really weird indications in the cash bean market.
Right.
And so we'll see, who blinks first, I guess, at this point. But we also have to watch what's going on in South America, yada, yada, yada. But from an overall,
Just on sorry, pardon me. Just on South America. So obviously forgetting the fact that, the ongoing thing with Venezuela and now potentially Colombia also being targeted, singled out by the Trump administration. Sorry. Although I did read a good, just kind of sideline on this. I did read a good point over the weekend that potentially the reason why it's the build up but no real action against Venezuela at the moment, and the reason why the US or Trump administration is potentially pulling its punches against Venezuela at the moment, is because it's hurricane season, and a lot of hurricanes and a lot of storms go through that region where on the Southern Caribbean Sea. So potentially they're waiting until that's over, and they're looking at the latest news from the National Hurricane Center, which is quite a considerable storm now barreling through that area. Kind of makes sense. So potentially one to watch when the hurricane season does die down. Do we see the Trump administration get more aggressive on Venezuela? Because they have mentioned the words regime change, etc., etc. But going back to the point I was trying to make, which was obviously last week we had Trump basically claiming he's going to pull cows out of his butt to drive down beef prices. Now, because the Argentinian US swap line that's in place, me and Michael Brown were talking about this morning on the Morning Blast, the US now has a lot of Argentinian pesos. Now, I mooted this morning and I said I was going to bring it up with you. Potentially, could the Americans be now using these Argentinian pesos to buy Argentinian beef?
Yeah, I feel
It seems all fits all of a sudden everything fits together a little bit better, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like we're sending money down. We saw him buy in the blue side of things. Like I have to be careful because I feel like it's above my pay grade to start talking about
same.
stocks and like that. You know what I mean? Like I just get a little nervous where I'm going to be like, well, open mouth, foot in foot, in that regard. But yeah, obviously you've seen this administration decide that they want to be really, really close to the Argentina administration. And we knew that. Milei, was really heavily supported by Elon and Trump during the whole, like before Trump was elected, trying to remember how everything went chronologically, or shortly after he was elected and before he took office. I can't remember. How long has Milei been in office anymore? I feel like it's all blurring together.
Oh, do you know what? You could have told me COVID was last year, and I'd believe you at this
Oh
point.
my God, I know. It's like, oh my goodness. But I mean, I think he's been about a year that he's been in power, and we've obviously seen that they fully believe that he's got the mandate or whatever. So we're, 5, 6 days away from that election. We'll get that on Sunday. And I think that'll have a huge influence too on what the administration does. Because if Milei doesn't win, if Milei doesn't, and which he's not running, but his party, you know what I mean? Like if his party doesn't see a victory, the Trump administration has already threatened to kind of pull some support. Like, do they do that on automatic? Like, what do we see happen with this whole entire thing and with the Argentine beef and some of this other stuff? Like, right now, you're seeing the meat complex trade higher. Fats are higher today. Feeders are kind of mixed. I'm 10 minutes delayed, so maybe they're all higher at this point, after closing limit down there on Friday.
Yeah.
But I just, I feel like everything, I can't say it. I'm not going to say it. I just feel like every plan that we've had has just not worked out well for us.
Yeah.
It's just one of the things that, and I mentioned it Friday, and I'm less disgruntled today, but still, partly disgruntled, I guess you could say. But it's frustrating in the sense that the cattle market's been the one shining light. Like, and every time we have an opportunity and profitability in the agricultural complex, we have to pull the rug out from underneath them. You had the egg thing, like, and
Yes. Yeah. God. Oh, do you remember when eggs were like,
yeah.
people were talking about eggs priced in gold at one point?
Well, it's just, and I mean, we brought in a boatload of eggs, well, multiple boatloads of eggs from Turkey.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I'd rather, nothing against Turkey, please, but like I think I'd rather just pay a little. And it's easy for me to say because I've come from a place of privilege now. I grew up very poor. I know what it's like to pinch pennies. I spent my 20s with $20 a week and for food budget when I was, early married and some of these other things. Like, I get it. And so I have to be careful not to overly speak from a place where it's like, well, just pay more. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
why is it that, and someone said this earlier, so this isn't a unique idea on my part, but why is it the Trump administration's like, oh, well, we might have to pay more to be America first and bring back some manufacturing to our country. And that's just a thing that patriots are going to do. But the minute we have to pay, $10 for a pound of ground beef, well, that's too much.
Yeah.
That's way too much, and so it's frustrating. It also tells us that we're going to really struggle with the free market, system. Not that we have anyone that's aggressively free market in Washington anymore, but it's just kind of like one of those things at this point where we know over the next few years, couple of years, really we're going to have some buckets of water kind of tossed on some things here or there. But, we'll see. Someone did say Hassett, and I'm going off on it, so I'm going to come back to what we started this for, which is fundamental updates. We did see Hassett say this week that he thought that the government would be back open this week. I don't know if you saw that or not. So that was one.
I hope. Again, I say this from the other side of the pond, so I've got no eggs in this basket. See what I did there? But I have got a bet. Sorry, I apologise profusely. That was horrible. Sorry. I have a bet with Michael, our dear friend Michael Brown, about when you guys the government's going to be back up and running again. He's saying before Thanksgiving, I'm saying after, and we've got quite a significant lunch on the back of this bet, on the back of this. So if you guys can stay like governmentless, whatever the word is, until Thanksgiving, I'd really much appreciate it.
I'm fine with it. Thanksgiving sounds delicious. I can't believe Thanksgiving's already.
Oh, don't.
So it's I don't like it. I hope that's not the case, but I have no idea anymore.
Oh God, I just felt, any kind of interest leave your body as you said that.
Yeah, I'm just like whatever. It's just one of those things. I constantly live in the Clark Griswold National Lampoon's Christmas, where he's like,
Love it, best movie.
My head down to the floor, and I'd be less surprised than I am right now. That's how I feel every day when I come in. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing today. Cool. And so, yeah, we'll see. From an overall standpoint, though, or news updates, now that we don't really have much of USDA stuff to look at, we will get export inspections today. So we'll want to keep an eye on those. If we get another bean export number, million plus metric ton, reason I rounded that because that's pretty solid. I mean, that's just an indication that rest of the world demand is solid. So we'll kind of watch that. But a lot of people will be like, yeah, well, normally it's 2 million metric ton this time of year. Well, no shit, Debbie. China's not buying. We know this already. Okay. And so we'll be watching that. We'll watch corn. we basically need to ship about 50 million metric tons of corn a week, or excuse me, 50 million bushels. 50 million metric ton of corn a week would be way too much. Million bushels of
Whoa, whoa,
corn
whoa.
a week. Yeah, yeah, right. I'm just like, we're going to export all of it. 16 billion at the rate we're going. But, we'll want to watch wheat exports, see how they continue. And, really when it comes down to it, we'll continue to watch cash as well. Basis and soybeans is on the march still. The next 10 days will be real interesting because that's going to be a lot of positioning ahead of
Right.
delivery on the November contract. And you're going to see who's naked, like who did not get in the beans they thought they'd get in, and so, it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit to see this no Jan widen back out a bit just to give people a false sense of complacency and also not let them out if they're overspread. So like if you already overtraded your spread, and we talked about this before, like as an elevator, if you think you're going to buy, if you're going to hold 3 million bushels, you're trading and you're thinking you're going to get ownership and coverage and yada, yada, yada. So that'll be interesting to watch. We'll be able to tell who needs to get their spread position straightened, who might be physically short, who isn't, and then we'll just kind of continue to watch basis from there. But it's firming to show signs of strength. And once the farmers put this stuff away, it's not coming back out. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how the week plays out. We'll watch South American weather. Brazil is turning off dry. There's a few things to be watching there. They've had good planting, a good start planting, but have definitely, are seeing some more drier weather in the forecast. I think I mentioned already. So we'll watch that, and harvest will probably be pretty slow in the Eastern Corn Belt. We got about 3 inches of rain here, and we're supposed to get a couple more, like we're supposed to rain tonight through the week. So we'll be slow, at least in this neck of the woods. We'll see what the rest of the U.S. does, but lots of folks wrapping up, and basically, if we don't see max harvest pressure in the next couple of weeks, we aren't going to get it. So it's about, we'll see what the China updates look like and go from there.
Hold tight and strap on.
Yeah. That's all you can.
Or strap in, rather. So.
Whichever. You know what? This is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, we listen, we do not judge. Angie, on that bombshell, thank you so much for your help. As usual, great to talk to you again after the weekend. Listeners, whatever you're doing, we really do appreciate you. Stay safe, keep it tight, and we will see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Just almost put coffee through my nose. Have a good one.
Goodbye.